this point.
John McCarter again. Let me welcome Lisa Madigan, Attorney General of the state of Illinois. General, we're delighted that you're here. Let's really work this guy now. And I was going to ask the first question, but I have to defer to one of the panelists from last year. So Ray, if you would state your name and affiliation, if you're willing to fess up to it, and pose the first question in true University of Chicago fashion.
You can know I'm from University of Chicago as I'm grabbing from the mic before you even finish talking, right? So I'm Ray Pierre Humbert from the University of Chicago Department of Geophysical Sciences. And so as part of one of the National Research Council boards I'm on, we're planning the commemoration of the anniversary of the 1980 Charney Report, which was the predecessor to IPCC. And rereading this report and remembering this report coming out from when I was a graduate student, it had every reason you could want for taking action. It had every reason you could want for taking action in 1980, the actions in 1980 that we're only starting to even think about contemplating right now. Nonetheless, especially through writing for Real Climate, I see a lot of the pushback here. And over the years, the public opinion needle has been, in the US, has been stuck at about 50%. And that's not just in terms of what people think should be done. It's been stuck at 50% roughly in terms of whether people even think that the warming is a natural phenomenon. And everything we've done in Real Climate and other things, and Chris Mooney, sometimes it goes a little over 50% who think that we're causing climate change. Right now it's a little bit under. There's a big pushback. And do you see any prospect for breaking this public opinion thing? People really have to start thinking this is a big problem. They have to start getting as terrified as scientists are. But I'm out of ideas on how to push that needle.
Okay, good start.
Great. We've had reason to act for a long time. I do think the precision of the science is higher now, even if in 1980 or 1990 there was already a lot of reason to act. We really are farther along in knowing substantively how dangerous this situation is. And of course, in the intervening period, we've filled the atmosphere with 2 parts per million of carbon dioxide each year, roughly, and that's taking a massive toll. One of the lessons of, I don't know if it's a lesson, one of my guesses, let me put it that way, one of my guesses about the politics of this, and one of the experimental lessons in social psychology, is that fear alone will not bring a solution. What needs to be put forward is a positive, not a positive spin, but a positive plan. What do you do? What do you want us to do? We don't have that to this moment, actually, in my opinion. Al Gore's movie, 98% of it is why should we be afraid? And then during the credits, it's some of the things that can be done. That's not the right balance for us right now. As much as that can provide the underlying reasons to act, we won't get action until there is a plan. My colleagues in economics confuse cap and trade with a plan. Cap and trade's not a plan, in my opinion. Cap and trade is a tool that can be used as part of a plan. What I mean by a plan is, instead of saying the US will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20%, say 15%, it's just been whittled down in yesterday's negotiation supposedly, 15% in 2020 compared to 2009. That's a goal, that's not a plan. Cap and trade is an instrument. People want to know, what's going to happen? Is that going to break the budget? Is that going to, how much more am I going to have to pay? What am I going to get out of it? How do I know it's going to work? My advisor in grad school wrote an op-ed piece today in the Wall Street Journal that I disagree with 100%. Marty Feldstein talking about how frightening it would be. How can you tax right now in the middle of the downturn? He should know how frightening it's going to be with a climate calamity on this planet. It's going to be a lot worse than a financial recession. So he makes, in my view, huge errors of balancing risks, benefits, and alternatives right now. But we haven't heard from President Obama yet what to do. And this bill, 648 pages, I actually turned every page. I did not read every page. But I skimmed every page. And I know a lot about that bill. And at the end of it, there was no strategy, no quantification. It didn't tell me anything about what was actually going to happen in the U.S. economy, what it would mean, how much it would cost, zero. So how can people buy into that? And I believe they can't. And I think we also need to know some very particular things that cap and trade is unable to address. Just to name one to start, nuclear power. I believe we need nuclear industry. We need to get back to large-scale nuclear power. That is not a decision that cap and trade is going to decide at all, at all. That's a political decision, and as their economics come into it, but it's largely a political decision right now. Carbon capture and sequestration. Does it work? How reliable is it? Can we monitor the CO2? How do we handle this from a liability and point of view? How much is it going to cost to have an oxy-fuel or a IGCC power plant? And we couldn't even get one project going in the last 10 years, the FutureGen, which Illinois knows about well. This is absurd for us. So my basic answer is that until the political leadership, based on help that I think we all ought to give, says what really is the plan, we'll continue to flounder. If there is something that looks not so frightening and that looks plausible, then that will even defeat or get buy-in from the 50% who say, yeah, it's probably changing, but who knows? But yeah, we could live with that. That's insurance. And that's how I think we should proceed.
Michael Lewis and I had dinner on Saturday night, and I promised him if he would leave his operating suite that he could have a word with you. So, Michael, I'm putting you on the spot. Great. Dr. Lewis.
That's exciting.
I was, excuse me, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, but I was in Bonsasso, one of your Millennium villages, with a friend of mine, Dr. Jeff Tabin, who, and I don't know if you want to speak for a moment about the Millennium villages, but these are villages that have nothing, no running water, never any health care. And the particular part that I was involved in was eye care, where all 6,000 people in a village were screened. Approximately 400 needed cataract surgery. Excuse me. 400 people had cataract surgery. People who'd been blind for years the next day could see. So Jeffrey Sachs, through his Millennium Project, is doing some extraordinary things. So a question, you wrote The End of Poverty in, was it 2005? If you wrote it today, if you were updating it today, what would be some of the changes? What have you learned? What's different?
Thanks.